This really happened to me when I was 22, in the summer, between my senior year at Ohio State and the job I thought I had lined up in Cleveland. I'm not proud of every decision I made, but I swear on the brass house key that still leaves a dent in my palm. Every part of this is true. My sister slid a notarized deed across our mother's dining table and said, "We closed this morning," which is how I learned she'd sold our family house without asking me. The paper was still warm, fresh from a UPS store copier on North High Street, and the notary stamp bled through like a bruise. A lockbox already hung from the front doorknob like an ankle monitor, and a buyer's agent in a black blazer was in the living room measuring baseboards with a laser tape while my sister's iPhone buzzed with showing time confirmations. By the time I realized the listing agent was my boyfriend, the humiliation came hard enough to make the room tilt. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. I grew up in that Clintonville 2-story on a quiet block sloping toward old shade trees and a shredded rubber playground where we used to race until the streetlights popped on. Our mom worked nights at Riverside Methodist, slept in shifts, and could sew a prom dress from a Goodwill sheet when the money didn't stretch. She had this rule that the house had to hold us no matter what: rain or foreclosure notice, college or divorce. When she died of a sudden aneurysm 2 months before my 21st birthday, it felt like gravity broke. We bickered through probate, split her teacups, and forgot to eat for days. In the kitchen, she'd repainted a stubborn, cheerful yellow. My older sister, Maddie, born Madeline, 28 then, the kind of person who gets a room to listen by leaning back in her chair, declared herself the responsible one and told me the estate needed a steady hand. I was drowning in finals. I let her be that hand. We each had a set of keys. We each had a toothbrush in the upstairs hallway bath because neither of us could stand to sleep there alone at first. But I stayed most nights. The house had a rhythm. The porch creaked 2 boards from the left, the sump pump kicked on with a throat-clearing cough after storms, and the kitchen window stuck unless you pressed the heel of your hand right where Mom taught us. There were pencil marks on the pantry door from when Maddie shot past me in growth spurts, and later, from when I caught up. I used to run my finger over the ridge labeled Eve, sophomore year, and feel 4 feet of time collapse. I met Logan at a real estate gala the spring before Mom died. He was tall, in the careful way of guys who learned that charm could be a career. A Keller Williams name badge clipped to a suit he didn't quite fill out. He asked what I wanted after graduation. I said, a job, a studio, and a vegetable with a vitamin I can't pronounce. He laughed and went home with me after a campus movie night 2 weeks later and moved his toothbrush into my caddy by mid-fall. He beat me at bar trivia and left his socks like breadcrumbs. He could lie as easily as pour coffee. I didn't know that then. The day Maddie announced the sale, I had a half-written resume open on my laptop at the dining table and a Target bag of command hooks on the chair because I was planning to hang Mom's quilt in my tiny off-campus room until I felt brave enough to sleep in the house again. The UPS store's black ink bled through the deed. Franklin County Recorder's stamp, the buyer listed as Maple Ridge Holdings, LLC, the sale price so low I thought it was a typo. "You did this without me," I said, which was stupid because the fact literally sat in front of me, stamped, notarized, filed. Maddie folded her manicured fingers like she was hosting a webinar. "You were drowning in capstones and applications. Someone had to handle it. The market's soft. We got a fair offer. You'll get your half after closing costs and taxes." "After?" My voice came out small. "When is after?" "We closed this morning." She tapped the page like a school teacher. Date, June 16th. Recording number, a string of digits I still know by heart. There's a 30-day rent back. I negotiated it so we don't have to move immediately. See? I think about us. The listing agent is Logan, I said. He'd been at a showing the previous weekend, smiling in our living room as strangers opened Mom's linen closet. "You listed our mother's house with my boyfriend." Maddie's face didn't change. "He's good. He got it under contract in 48 hours. "How much?" I asked, already reading the number, already feeling something's wrong coil in my stomach. It was light, by at least 50 grand, on what the last house on our block got. "Comps are a suggestion," she said. "Also, inspection turned up foundation hairline cracks and the roof's old. It blah, blah, blah. Maple Ridge wanted a credit. I held firm. You're welcome." I don't know how long I sat there watching a stranger in a blazer measure my mother's house. I do know that when the buyer's agent walked outside and bent to snap a picture of the porch, the sun hit the notary stamp so I could make out the name, Brooklyn Pierce. The world shrank to a pinpoint. Brooklyn was the woman whose lipstick I'd found on Logan's hoodie 3 weeks before. Lilac rum, a shade I don't wear, smeared like a thumbprint on the inside of the collar. He'd said it belonged to a client. He'd shrugged when I held up the evidence like a trophy. "Relax, Evie," he'd said. I was carrying a staging tote. "You think I'd be that sloppy?" And then his phone lit up with a hotel folio, because he hadn't turned off his push notifications. AC Hotel downtown, room 704, the bill split on 2 cards with tip added. I pretended I didn't see it because I didn't want to become the woman who checked a man's phone. You make little bargains with yourself the way you hang string lights and call it a home. An investor bought Mom's house under market, and my boyfriend, maybe not my boyfriend now, depending on whether you count the moment you first understand a person, had orchestrated it. My sister had decided I didn't need a vote. The lockbox blinked red. I breathed. Jules, my best friend from freshman year, we'd met at a communal microwave when I exploded oatmeal, arrived with iced coffees 30 minutes later because I'd texted, "Emergency, please." She walked in, took one look at my face, and backed up until she hit the fridge. "Okay," she said. "Tell me, slowly, what they did." "They sold it," I said, and my voice cracked on the pronoun. "I didn't do anything to you," Maddie said, offended, like I'd accused her of slashing my tires. Jules slid me an iced coffee, and then, without asking, scooped the deed off the table and skimmed it. She pointed to a clause on the last page. "Tenancy, 30 days post-closing, seller rent back its road settler. You can stay for free for a month," she said to Maddie, side-eye sharp enough to cut. "How generous of you to negotiate yourself free rent in the house you just sold." I wanted to find a switch to flip so I could be the version of myself who let the whole thing roll off her, who wore sunglasses and said, "It's just a house," and walked away. That wasn't me. There are a dozen moments when you think you can still be small. There is one when you decide you can't. When the buyer's agent left and the lockbox light blinked green for someone else, I took my iced coffee to the back steps and called Logan. He answered on the second ring with his work voice. "Hey there, sunshine," he said. "You excited to move on to the next chapter?" "Tell me you didn't list it," I said, and my voice came out strangled. "Tell me you're not representing my sister." "I have to disclose," he said, like he was reading a script. "I represent the seller, not the buyer. There's no dual agency. Everything's above board." "Who's the buyer?" I asked. "Maple Ridge Holdings, LLC. That's a paper bag with eye holes." "Investors are clean," he said. "They move fast. You guys needed fast. It's honestly a favor." "You cheated on me with the notary," I said, and I didn't plan to say it, but it fell out like a plate sliding off a counter. He laughed. "Brooklyn notarizes half the deals in this city, Evie. Grow up." "I found your hotel folio," I said. I heard myself blink, stupidly, like that would be a sound. "If you're going to go through my phone, at least read it right," he said, and the fake sympathy in his voice almost purpled my vision. It was a client dinner with developers. "You split the bill with her," I said. "So what?" he said, bored. "The house is sold. Maddie told me you couldn't handle the payments and the roof is a mess. This is for your own good. You'll get a check. Buy yourself a studio in Old Town, and we'll get you that plant. He talked about the plant like he'd ever remembered to water anything in his life. I hung up on him. It felt like pushing through a heavy door. That night I sat on the floor in my childhood bedroom and pulled a shoebox from the back of Mom's closet where she kept the truly important things. The title to her Corolla, a spare passport photo from a decade ago where she looked surprised by her own face, and a copy of her will. I'd read it 100 times after she died, sure, but grief blurs the edges. It's like trying to read through water. This time, I read line by line until the words bit. Article the 3. Real property located at 1180 Dakota Avenue shall pass in equal shares to my daughters, Madeline Klein and Evelyn Klein, subject to the following. Should either daughter desire to sell her interest, she must first offer her interest to the other daughter at the appraised value discounted by 10%. 10%. The non-selling daughter shall have 90 days to exercise this right of first refusal. I read it again, then again. I didn't know if it mattered now that the house was already sold. I did know that the will was recorded, and recorded things try very hard to hold the world in place. Jules was on my bed cross-legged with her laptop, already deep in tabs. Maple Ridge Holdings, she said. There's one registered to a UPS store box in Worthington. I'm guessing that's them. The agent is a guy named Brian Colt. And look, she turned her screen. Brian Colt's Instagram has open house pics with guess who smiling in the background. Logan was in 3 frames, holding a branded balloon, leaning against our porch railing like he owned it. Her cursor hovered over the handles he'd tagged, a Logan Cornell Real Estate, a Brooklyn Pierce Realtor. Brooklyn's not just a notary, she's an agent, Jules said. Surprise, surprise. You thought he was just cheating on me, I said, and I didn't mean for it to hurt when I said it. I was flat, a map of Ohio on a table, all the roads crisscrossed and pinned. I think he's cheating a lot of people in a lot of ways, Jules said. But your Eve Klein, the me I met in freshman comp, tore a guy to shreds because he plagiarized an Anne Carson poem and called it original inspiration. That girl is not about to let an investment LLC mow her down. One thing about grief is that it made me good at going step by step. The next morning, I took the CODA bus to campus and sat in a sterile office called Student Legal Services under a poster of a balanced scale. A third year at Moritz College of Law named Priya walked me through the will language. Right of first refusal is a thing, she said slowly. You can enforce it, even post-sale sometimes. It depends when notice was given. Did your sister notify you of her intent to sell and offer you a chance to buy her half? She told me we would talk about it later, I said. Does that count? It does not. Priya slid a pad toward me. We can file a complaint in Franklin County Common Pleas for specific performance, asking the court to enforce your right to purchase her interest. We'll also record a les pendens to cloud title, meaning any future transfer has to deal with your claim. Investors hate clouds. What if the house is already in Maple Ridge's name? I asked. Then we potentially pull them in as necessary parties, Priya said, like she was tying her hair, calm and fierce. If your boyfriend's brokerage handled this and there were conflicts, there might also be an ethics complaint with the Ohio Division of Real Estate and Professional Licensing. You have texts? I have hotel receipts and his phone's push notification, I said, and the fact that their notary is the woman he's cheating with. Priya's eyebrows did a low, respectful whistle. Even if the affair is technically personal, undisclosed dual agency and self-dealing are not. If your sister sold to a friendly LLC under market while her agent boyfriend facilitated, that's textbook shady, but our best leverage is the right of first refusal. Can you finance the purchase? That sentence landed in my chest. Financing. Me. I made $8 an hour shelving books at the Thompson Library and babysat for a professor who paid me in cash and leftover Trader Joe's cookies. I can try, I said. And then, I have Mom's Corolla. It's paid off. I can try. You try, Priya said, and we file. I didn't sleep more than 2 hours for the next week. In daylight, I stood in banks, talking to loan officers with clean hands and mortgage calculators, repeating, I have a will provision. I have a job offer contingent on relocation. I intend to occupy as my primary residence. I have minimal debt, and I can scrape together 5% with help from a down payment assistance program. Does your credit union participate? At night, I sat at the dining table under the new ugly LED bulb Maddie preferred and filled in forms. I tracked Logan's online presence like it was a class. He posted a selfie at the short North Arts District mural with the Artish closing day. He tagged Brooklyn under a boomerang of champagne flutes. He laughed at a comment from Maple Ridge's Brian with flame emojis. I screenshotted everything. During the rent back, Maddie was at the house constantly. She played hostess to people who used to be our neighbors, like she hadn't just signed our history away. She opened a tab at the Rusty Bucket on Lane Avenue and held court with real estate words she didn't understand. When I told her about the right of first refusal clause, she waved her hand. That's boilerplate, she said. Boilerplate is still a plate, I said, and she smirked like she'd won something by not laughing at me. The night before we filed, I was at the kitchen table organizing my polite little war. Tabs labeled deed, will, texts, MLS listing, comps, ethics, when an Uber receipt buzzed my phone from a ride I hadn't taken. I'd left my account logged in on Logan's iPad once. He used my account when his card was maxed. It was 11:42 p.m., pickup at the AC Hotel downtown, drop-off at 1180 Dakota Avenue. His name wasn't on it, but the timing felt like stepping on an exposed wire. I walked onto the porch and leaned over the railing to where the Ring camera Mom insisted on bought us last Christmas blinked. You can scroll the footage from your phone if you pay the absurd $3 plan. I paid it. 11:56 p.m. Headlights washed the porch. Logan, in his realtor's suit jacket, opens the passenger door and reaches for someone's hand. Brooklyn steps out in a little black dress and the kind of heels that would never see the inside of our house in my mother's lifetime. Logan's hand on the small of her back, all of it documented in that merciless fisheye glow as they walked up the steps toward my door. The lockbox clicked. They let themselves into my house like it was a showroom and giggled in the foyer, where Mom used to set a bowl of clementines in the winter because she liked to be stubborn about joy. I watched them disappear into the shadowed hallway. And here is where I tell you, you can do a lot with fury if you refuse to burn. I took 3 long breaths until the air tasted like metal and walked back to my table. The next morning, Priya filed the complaint, Klein vs. Klein et al. She recorded the LS pendants at the Franklin County Recorder and emailed me a copy. Now everyone plays on our board, she said. We sent a letter to Maple Ridge's registered agent, putting them on notice of my right of first refusal and the pending case. We sent a certified letter to Maddie's temporary mailbox at the UPS store in Worthington, because of course she'd stopped picking up anything at home. I hand-delivered a copy to the house with Jules, filming the delivery like we were running a sting. The Ring captured me holding a big manila envelope like a dumb, determined messenger. Logan texted me 9 minutes later. You've lost it, he wrote. You can't sue people for being practical. I'm blocking you. Save your texts, Jules said over my shoulder when she saw the screen. We might need that for the smear campaign beat of this arc. Maddie chose smear. She posted on Facebook that some people were too sentimental to handle adult business and implied I had substance issues, which would be very surprising to the Diet Coke I nursed like a pet. She called my aunt in Parma and had her call me to say I was embarrassing them. My aunt called me honey twice in the same sentence, which is the tone of someone who's picked a side but thinks she sounds kind. Maddie went to Mom's church the next Sunday and cried in the second pew. Meanwhile, Maple Ridge's attorney emailed Priya saying they were open to discussing a global resolution that would avoid the uncertainty of litigation if I would rescind the les pendants. Investors hate clouds. The global resolution offered me a buyout of my interest for $35,000 if I had sign a release and walk away in peace in 10 days. $35,000 was a lot of money to me. It was also, approximately, the difference between what they'd paid and what the house would sell for without an underlined must-sell sticker slapped on it by my sister and Logan. Counter, Priya said. Tell them we'll purchase the property for the same price they paid, plus their closing costs and a reasonable assignment fee. They'll make money. You'll get the house. Everyone quits bleeding. Can I counter if I can't get fully approved yet? I asked. You can get a pre-approval and negotiate a 90-day close, Priya said. And we keep the Ellis pendants in place until recording. The cloud stays until we're holding the umbrella. I got the pre-approval. I have never done anything more adult than sit at the Kemba Credit Union brick building on Bethel Road and say, my job offer is for $56,000. I can provide the letter. It's post-graduation. I plan to remain in Columbus for at least 1 year. The loan officer, a woman with a wedding band, and the eyes of someone who has seen no nonsense survive her desk, looked at my pay stubs, shook her head at my credit without contempt, and said, we can do 5% down. I cried in the parking lot into the neck of my hoodie because it meant I was not crazy. We sent the counter. Maple Ridge huffed and puffed and tried to blow the house down. And then, because investors hate uncertainty more than they love profit, they accepted. The price was more than they'd paid and less than I wanted. It was the exact compromise that would make my mother say, be grateful, Evie, then fight for what matters next. We set the close for 90 days out to give me time to finalize. Priya updated the list pendants with the agreement terms. Maple Ridge sent a draft purchase contract with my name in black ink, and I put my finger on those letters like they were something I could hold. All the while, the rent back ticked down. Maddie continued to live in the house for free, like a little queen with a Netflix queue. At night, sometimes I'd hear Logan's stupid laugh in the hallway because he liked to stop by and check on things. I moved out to Jules' apartment off Indianola because I couldn't keep sitting at that table pretending we were a family. I brought Mom's quilt. I brought my shoebox. I left my spare key because I couldn't stand to not be allowed in a place I loved. Jules stocked our fridge with deli turkey like she was prepping for a siege. When people ask me where the turning point was, I tell them it was a piece of paper left in a rideshare seat back. My friend Ben works nights driving Uber and sometimes studies in our living room when it's slow. He came in at 2 a.m., tossed his keys, and said, "Hey, weird question. Isn't your sister named Madeline? Does she use Klein or something different now?" I told him Klein. He handed me a crumpled folio. Marriott Columbus University area, room 312, one-night stay, purchased by Cornell Real Estate Group, and incidentals charged to Monsieur Klein. It had been printed and left in the back pocket of his Prius by a woman who'd taken 2 phone calls at stoplights and complained about family drama. She left it when she got out, Ben said, saw the name and thought it might be yours. If not, sorry for the weird. It was weird. It was also proof. Cornell Real Estate Group was Logan's team at his brokerage. Our sister had stayed in a hotel mid-rent back and charged to Logan's corporate card. On the receipt was a handwritten note, "Deliver lockbox key to BP." BP could only be Brooklyn Pierce. Priya built a new stack. Ethics complaint. She added the receipt to the screenshots of Logan and Brooklyn on our porch at midnight, added the listing photos that blurred family pictures, but not enough to hide Logan's reflection in the glass, added the inspection addendum where Logan had written, "Foundation hairline crack, normal," in his handwriting. She filed with the Ohio Division of Real Estate. We weren't trying to put him in jail. We were trying to strip away the power he wielded like a grin, Because the universe sometimes plays into your hands if you've done the work, Maple Ridge tried to pull one more stunt 10 days before closing. They proposed an assignment of their contract to a different entity with more favorable tax treatment and asked me to sign an addendum agreeing to waive any claims against agents or brokers involved in the sale. I said no. They called Priya and implied I didn't understand business. Priya told them we'd be delighted to have the judge understand it for me. They signed my original draft without the waiver. 12 hours later, I printed the email and tucked it in my shoebox. I think if I'd had a safe, I would have slept inside it. The day before closing, I walked through the house with a different agent. One I hired, a woman named Steph who grew up in Cleveland Heights and had shoulders like she could carry a couch alone. The hydrangeas out front had gone dumb with bloom. The porch floor needed sanding where the chairs scraped. The kitchen smelled, faintly, of lemon pledge. Maddie was at the dining table with a notebook pretending to run a house-selling empire. Logan was there, leaning back in the chair, his jacket tossed on the back like he belonged. Brooklyn stood by the fridge with a bundle of keys on a lanyard like she'd come to a costume party as authority. "You know you can't kick me out," Maddie said as soon as Steph introduced herself. "Evictions take months." "I'm not kicking you out," I said. "I'm closing on the house tomorrow. I'm giving you a written 30-day notice to vacate because our agreement says you have no lease, you're a holdover after rent back, and Ohio requires a 3-day notice before filing for forcible entry and detainer, so I'm giving you more than 10 times that because you're my sister." "You're not my mother," she said, and her voice landed like a thrown glass. "No," I said. "She wrote the words that got us here. I'm just reading them out loud." Logan snorted. "This is pathetic," he said. "You don't have the money. You're making a scene. Brooklyn, tell her." Brooklyn opened her mouth and then shut it. Steph looked at her with pity. "I'm here as Ms. Klein's agent," Steph said, pointedly neutral to the room. "We'll be at the title office at 10 tomorrow. If you want to communicate, please go through counsel." "You lawyered up?" Maddie said, like it was something brand new to her and not months in the making. I slid a printed letter across the table, my hand steady because I'd practiced. "This is the 30-day notice," I said. "You have until August 30th to remove your belongings. I'll change the locks on August 31st. If you don't leave willingly, I'll follow Franklin County Municipal Court procedure. I'd like not to." The letter had Priya's signature at the bottom. I had another copy in my folder with the words "served by hand" and the time. Maddie didn't look at the paper. "You won't do it," she said. "You're not cruel." "You're right," I said. "I'm not. That's why I'm giving you 30 days, not 3, and why I'm not posting the ring footage all over Facebook with the Marriott receipt. Leave before I change my mind about who needs to see what." She flinched. Logan's mouth pressed into a thin line. Brooklyn seemed briefly fascinated by the oven clock. I walked the house with Steph, making notes on blue painter's tape like the entire place was a term paper, and I could still revise it. Closing the next morning felt like clasping hands with a version of myself I thought only existed in theory. The title officer slid a stack of papers across a cherry wood table in a suburban office park off Sawmill Road, poured coffee into styrofoam cups, and made soft jokes about how many signatures it takes to buy something you already own in your bones. My signature looked more confident by page 6. Maple Ridge didn't come in person. They wired their side from a laptop probably balanced on artisan tile in a kitchen they'd flip next. Priya sat at my elbow with a cardigan-like armor. Steph picked at a napkin until it shredded. At the end, the title officer stacked the documents, patted them, and said, "Congratulations, Ms. Klein. You are recorded owner of 1180 Dakota Avenue." She handed me a small locking envelope with a key. It was the same brass weight as the one in my shoebox, but new enough to squeak. I drove straight to the house. The sky was stupidly blue. Kids dribbled a basketball in the street like the world hadn't shifted. I stood on the porch and slid the key into the lock, like the final line of a poem. Inside, the dining table stood under that ugly LED, a bowl of green limes already softening in the heat. Maddie looked up, and for a moment I saw the girl who had once taught me how to French braid and smuggled me donuts into my room when I had the flu and Mom was at work. The moment passed. "You're early," she said. "You're supposed to give notice before you come." "I'm the owner," I said, and for once in this entire saga, I didn't have to argue the point. "I'm here with a copy of the recorded deed and to check smoke detectors, per the insurance carrier's request." I had no idea if insurance requested that at this hour. It felt like a useful sentence. I placed a second copy of the 30-day notice on the mantel under Mom's frame photo, the one of her at Lake Erie, sunglasses on, hair in a wind-snatched bun, holding a fried perch sandwich and laughing. "August 30th, I said. "That's your last day." Maddie crumpled one corner of the paper. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, which cut me because it was the question we both asked after Mom died, and the house had been the one steady answer. "You made a lot of money on the sale, and then the assignment," I said softly. "Use that. You have a good job at the nonprofit. You have friends. You have Logan." "Do I?" she asked with something like wonder, but mostly like a stage line. And I hardened against recognizing it. The public part of the revenge came 2 days later at a fundraiser Logan's brokerage hosted at a brewery in Italian Village. I didn't intend to go. My plan was just to get my house back and evict my sister quietly, clean out the attic, change the LED bulbs back to warm, and live a straightforward, boring life. But the Ohio Division of Real Estate called Priya the morning of the fundraiser and asked if I was able to attend a voluntary interview about my complaint. Priya said yes, and then added if there were an efficient way for a few witnesses to see the evidence at once. And the investigator said, "We'll be at 7th Sun at 7 tonight. That's convenient." The fundraiser had twinkle lights and a chalkboard sign that said, "Cheers to closings," in a handwriting font that wanted a tip. Brokers in navy blazers mingled with flippers and allbirds. Logan stood by a bar-height table with Brooklyn, their shoulders nearly touching, a little orbit they didn't know people could see. I wore jeans and an OSU tee and a jacket Mom left in the hall closet with a 20 in the pocket like a spell for safety. Priya introduced herself to the investigator. Steph hovered with a face like a thunderhead that had read the code of conduct twice. I walked up to Logan like he owed me money, and I was there to collect because in several ways he did. "Evie," he said, "this is neither the time nor the place." "It's exactly both," I said, and handed the investigator a folder, labeled with my neat little tabs: ethics, listing, ring, hotel. The investigator glanced through the stack with the blissful nonchalance of someone operating with state authority. "Thank you," he said. "We'll be in touch." Brooklyn's cheeks flushed, a dull human red that made me like her more than I meant to. She started to say something that sounded like an apology and stopped because the script hadn't written that line for her yet. "I don't care if you're sleeping with him," I said quietly to Brooklyn, off to the side of the craft IPA board. "I care if you notarized signatures you shouldn't have and facilitated a sale that cut corners because you thought no one would read the fine print. I'm reading it." She nodded once, small. "I didn't know about the will," she said, which might have been true. "I thought your sister had an unrestricted right to sell." "She didn't," I said, and let the investigator's hand on her elbow do the rest. That night, Maddie posted on Facebook that some people are trying to destroy my life out of jealousy. She tagged me, then untagged me when her comments came back teeth first, because it turned out other people had watched my silent unraveling and were happy to watch it reverse. The aunt from Parma called to say I was making a spectacle, which was rich from a woman who wore sequins to funerals. I went home, to Jules's apartment, still home, and ate donuts on our couch and watched a video montage of cats falling off windowsills until I could breathe. Counting down those 30 days turned me into both a machine and broken glass. I boxed my childhood in evenings after work. The school projects Mom kept, the camp badges, the stack of letters she'd written me when I was 8 from overnight shifts that said, no matter what, this house is yours. I changed the LED bulbs back to warm yellow. I scrubbed the baseboards on my knees because I needed to sweat for something that wasn't anxiety. I found a photograph in the back of a drawer of Mom at 23, my age, standing on the porch holding a plant with a vitamin name I couldn't pronounce. I put it on the mantel. I taped the eviction papers to the inside of a kitchen cabinet so I wouldn't have to see them, but could touch them when I needed proof that the rules were real. 2 weeks before the deadline, the Ohio Division of Real Estate emailed they were opening a formal investigation into Logan's conduct and had temporarily suspended his license pending the outcome due to considerable evidence of undisclosed conflicts and impropriety. He called me 3 seconds later, like he'd been refreshing his inbox waiting for the notification, his voice higher than I'd ever heard it. "You did this," he said. "You ruined me." "You did it to yourself," I said, and it didn't feel like a line. It felt like a fact. He tried menace then, storing it in his chest like a squirrel with nuts, pulling it out to nibble. "You think I don't know people at the court?" he said. "You think I can't make this ugly?" "I know exactly what the court requires," I said. "It doesn't require your opinion." He blocked me again after sending a paragraph about how I'd never find anyone like him. The Ring camera caught him once more on the porch, alone at 2 a.m., standing under the motion light like a parody of himself. He paced, then left. I changed the front door code and told Steph. She told Priya. Priya told the investigator. I documented without fury. That's the thing about anger. When it finally cools, it becomes exacting. 3 days before the deadline, Maddie knocked on Jules's door. She looked small, in a way I wasn't ready for. Like a queen who'd realized the crown had always been too heavy, she held a cranberry suitcase with a busted wheel. "I'm leaving now," she said, "to make it easier. You don't have to file anything." "I already filed," I said, not unkind. "A 3-day notice and then a complaint. It's automatic unless you're out by the deadline. But if you're out now, the bailiff won't have to schedule anything. We can cancel." She stood there like she'd trained for a fight no one picked. "I didn't realize she put that in the will," she said suddenly, eyes lighting on the quilt on our couch. "Anything but me." "Mom?" The first refusal thing. She told me she trusted me. "She did," I said. "She trusted both of us. She trusted me to listen to her words." "Logan said," she started and stopped. "Logan says a lot of things," I said. "He said, investors move fast because they're efficient," she said. And there was a childish whine under the sentence, like she wanted to be told the world made sense if you walked fast enough. "He said you didn't have the money. He said I needed to be the adult." "You are an adult," I said. "Adult enough to read. Adult enough to know that secrets rot." I didn't say it like a knife. I didn't have to. The truth lay between us like a length of chain. That afternoon, we walked through the house together. She took down the little string of fairy lights she'd hung in the hallway for mood and packed them carefully like they were precious. She left behind the chipped mug Mom used to drink tea from in winter. She left behind, perhaps accidentally, the hotel folio in the junk drawer. I left it. Some things, even if they are proof, you do not need to keep. On August 30th, I stood on the porch with the bailiff anyway because that's how the city works. You file, you schedule, you cancel only if you see proof the person is gone. He was kind, in the way of men who have watched too many domestic scenes without a soundtrack, quiet, precise, respectful. He knocked. Nobody answered. The house sounded like a held breath. We walked through. Her room was empty. The closet was clear. The bathroom held only her half-used mascara. The bailiff had me sign a form stating possession restored. I wrote my name in block letters. After he left, I sat on the top step and cried the ugly cry that involves your whole body. The house felt too big and exactly right at once. I walked to the kitchen and flipped the switch for the warm light. I set Mom's photo back on the mantel and slid my finger along the old grooves on the pantry door where our heights were recorded, and I added one more notch with a pencil. 22, recorded owner, scared and stubborn and present. The Ohio Division of Real Estate concluded their investigation in October. Logan's license was suspended for a year with mandatory ethics training and a $10,000 fine. I watched him post a Notes app apology to his professional Instagram and turn off comments after 5 minutes. Brooklyn received a reprimand and had to attend the same ethics sessions. She DM'd me the day the order posted, a simple, "I'm sorry, I should have seen it. Good luck." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I replaced the LED bulb in the dining room with a warm Edison that made the wood glow. I sanded the porch and painted it the color of an Ohio sky right before snow. I took pictures off the walls and hung them again one by one, each nail hammered into the same holes my mother made. I brought the plant from the photo, snake plant, Sansevieria trifasciata. I learned the name at the nursery, and the man who wrote it on the tag threw in a small pot for free because he said, "Good houses deserve survivors." When people ask why I evicted my sister, I tell them the legal reason. Because our agreement said 30 days, and the law says how you leave is part of how you come back. But the truth is larger. I evicted the story where I was the girl too sentimental to hold a deed against a smile. I evicted the version Logan wanted, where paperwork was above my pay grade and love was a discount. I evicted the habit of apologizing to people who counted on it like rent. Maddie and I didn't talk for 4 months. She moved into an apartment near Grandview with a roommate who worked nights and posted pictures of elaborate charcuterie boards. Sometimes she sent me Zillow links of houses she liked, like we were back at the kitchen table on our laptops pretending to shop. Once, at Christmas, we passed in the Kroger produce aisle, reached for the same bag of clementines, and our hands touched. She said, without looking at me, "I'm sorry for not reading." I said, "I'm sorry for reading to punish you." We both slipped a bag of clementines into our carts like a small truce and went home to our separate trees. Winter settled the way it always does in Columbus, lowering the sky until it kisses your forehead. On the first Tuesday of March, the tornado sirens did their 9:50 a.m. test, and I was at the dining table under the warm bulb writing a cover letter for a job I ended up not taking because I decided to stay in Columbus. The siren wailed, a sound that means, "Look, so nothing surprises you." I looked out the window. The porch light blinked on and off as if it remembered people on it. I had the house. I had the paper that said so, recorded and stamped and boring as hell to anyone who doesn't know how much that matters. And because this is a true story, I'll give you the last image the way it happened. The day the bailiff left, I stood in the doorway and watched sun shift across the wood floor. Mom refinished herself with a rented sander and a stubborn streak. I slid the brass key from my shoebox into the lock. It turned with a sound like a small victory. Somewhere on the street, a kid shouted for a pass and a ball hit hands. The hydrangeas outside bobbed their ridiculous heads. I stepped inside and closed the door, not to keep anyone out, but to learn what it felt like to belong. The end.